Anybody have anything to contribute or ask, or we have Bhante here to back it up?
I actually have a question.
Oh,
So, after some comments last week about paying attention to some of the sense doors when doing the insight meditation, it almost sounded like maybe you're supposed to go looking for senses. I was kind of meditating under the assumption that only if something became kind of front and center in my mind to note it.
well, yeah, you don't need to go looking. Sometimes I think what you're talking about is if there's a lapse, then you might fill in with something. And that sort of is looking for or creating to some extent. But if you want to keep the mindfulness continuous, then sometimes you have to look around a little and say, okay, well, what is going on? Because it doesn't seem like much. Or go to uh, kind of ever-present places like rising and falling, or touching on the chair, or your hands on the arms of or your hands on your hands. Just if you feel like there's a lapse, then you might look around a little bit and see, you know, is my stomach rising and falling, or are my hands touching, or can I, what do I feel in my body? And usually you feel yourself sitting in the chair or on the cushion or whatever you're doing or something. It's usually you don't have to go looking for something. There's plenty going on, you know. Did you hear that sneeze?
I thought it was Jim, but Jim's not here.
No, that was Matt.
That was a Matt sneeze.
I noticed.
Okay.
Hearing.
Hearing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the system that you teach, David, do you ever okay, I'm just going to focus on sound, both inner sound and outer sound? Do you ever
Not really.
selective focus?
No, not really. Well, selective focus. I mean, if you're noting the rising and falling of your abdomen, you're kind of, applying yourself to that. That's kind of selective focus.
Yeah, that would be
But
body sensation, right?
yeah, you can look around. You can see as if if your pain. I mean, if your knee is paining or something. But the thing, the goal of mindfulness meditation is to see what it's like just the way it is. You don't need to create. It's just, what is the mind doing? What's the body doing? When you hear, you hear. When you think, you think. When you rise, you rise. When you fall, you fall. When you yawn, you yawn. When you're hurting, your pain, your knee is paining or something. Because then you're seeing you the way you are. You're seeing the mind the way it's going, just the way what it does, and the body what it does. Is it hurts sometimes. It feels full after eating. It feels hungry. I've been noticing that hungry. A lot of times people say, "Oh boy, I'm really hungry." Like, hungry is painful. Hungry is a painful feeling. That's why you eat, is to stop that. At least that's my observation, anyways. It's not real painful, but it's not like this, "Oh boy, I'm really hungry." Like, it's not this pleasant feeling. It's, kind of a painful feeling. From my
My
observation.
father
Huh?
actually had a phrase that people actually eat before they get hungry.
Oh,
They don't want to experience hunger, so they eat before they get hungry.
yeah.
I thought that was kind of, hey,
That was
good point, Dad.
yeah. It's a good observation.
Yeah.
I've
Was
also
everybody like noting like when they're eating? So you can do an eating meditation. Sit down, prepare your food. Whenever you eat or drink, you should be sitting down. And then every time you're chewing the food, you should be noting chewing, chewing, chewing. Biting the food when you're bringing the cup of water or tea up to you, bringing raising your arm, raising, drinking, tasting, swallowing it. So the swallowing and the chewing are the two of the main things that we're doing when we're eating.
and
So if you're
tasting.
eating a piece of jerky, that's a real good meditation object, actually. So you'd be chewing, and you'd probably be chewing that bite for 20, 25 chews. So you're in the present moment when you're noting that. So you can be creative. I mean, you don't have to be just sitting. No, there's a lot of creative ways of being mindful. But everyone should slow down and eat slowly. Try to see every intention to reach for your cup or your fork, and try to see every intention. So you can really get into the eating. Same with walking. You got to do more walking, inside your apartment or house, back and forth, not in a circle, left, right, left, right. If you're walking outside, try to walk between, like you're at one car, try to note the left, right until you get to the next tree, and try not to think. See if you can make it from the car that's next to you to the next car or the next tree, and see if you can make it without thinking. And if you've got lost in a thought, you don't even know if you're on your left foot or your right foot. When we get caught up in a thought. So how mindful is that? It's total lack of mindfulness. So we can test ourselves. It's like, am I being mindful when I'm walking? Just try to go from one tree to the next tree, and just, carefully like feel the feet on the ground, left, right, walk slower, but don't look like a zombie. When you're out in public, when you're inside, you can walk as slow as, take 3-part steps, lifting, moving, placing. You come to the end, note that you're stopping, stand there for a while, note standing, then turning. There's an intention to turn. There's an intention to step, to take your first step. Try to see these intentions. That's how we're getting to understand that this is a mind and body, just these two things. That's a real deep insight. It's the first deep insight, that there's only these two things. There's a mind, there's a body, just these two things. And then that's how we get to understand no self, because there's no self there. There's a mind and there's a body. But all this soul, self, these other things, that's extra, which actually that we create mentally. So it's just these two realities. There's an intention before the body moves. We can see that experientially. We know it's true. And it's a cause and effect. There has to be an intention before you move, before you take that first step. There has to be intention before you stop. So when you slow down enough, you can start to see these intentions. So it's a very important part of this mindfulness practice. then, thoughts don't come very often. You can get blissful experiences when you're walking. One of my friends had that when he was in Sri Lanka, and where you feel like you're walking on a wave, and you're just getting like a kind of rapture and stuff arising when you're walking. I knew one yogi who would take 20 minutes to take 3 steps. So you're basically, like, your walking is actually 1 step at a time. And every time you note, and how you do it for 20 minutes is if you're noting the intention disappears. So you don't take that step. So you're sitting there watching the mind. There's an intention. I can't move because the mindfulness caught it. Intention disappears. Same thing when you're sitting. You might have an intention to stand up. If you're mindful, you see that intention, you can't stand up. You're sitting there and you're trying to stand up, but your mindfulness is catching all the, so you're getting into some good territory when you can do that. That's a big improvement. So that's my 2 cents on it.
So there's the intention that Bhante is talking about is, excuse me, is different from like intending to go to the market or something like that. Or my intention is to spend the rest of the day meditating or something. That's a different kind of intention. The intention that Bhante is talking about it's an impulse that arises right before you reach or step or move. The mind intends. It's not that easy to see. You have to have pretty good mindfulness. But if you're going to reach for your cup, you don't just reach for it. There's an intention that precedes it, that kind of initiates it. I was doing walking meditation in Sri Lanka, and they have these walkways that are 30, 40 feet long, I don't know. And you go to the end and you stop, and then you turn. And I was noting intention to turn. And so I noted, and then I didn't turn. And then it came again, intention, and I noted it, and I didn't turn. And I ended up standing on the end of the walkway for like 10 minutes or something like that, because I was catching the intentions. And then nothing, it like takes the power out of it. And then you don't do, if your mindfulness is strong, you don't do what the intention is intending to do. It's funny. You can get stuck. Yes?
So does that mean intention is, well, I think Bhante called it impulse, is almost an automatic?
Yeah. When you say
I
Bhante?
remember trying so hard when I first started this method with you, and I was meditating a lot. So after a long sit, and I never felt like I could see intention, and so I would attempt to after sitting everything very quiet, and I thought, okay, now just note what happens before you decide to end your meditation and stand up. But now from what you're saying, that once you note it, I think that's what was happening. I could see it, but then I wouldn't do it. So I could just sit there. I was thinking I should be feeling something, and then after a long time I would get up. So
Yeah.
I always felt like I had a really hard time seeing that.
Yeah, it's just a subtle impulse before a physical action. It's not that easy to see. When when you get the hang of it, then it becomes kind of easy to see. But to pick it out and recognize it, to learn to recognize it, can be kind of tricky or challenging. When
the instructions would say to note it. I think you and even other things I read said it's important to note intention. And I would tell you that I would say it anyway, even though I couldn't really see it. And you said, don't do that.
Yeah. No, only note what you can see.
Don't note it unless you're really seeing it.
Finally,
Because
when I got
never see
stuck, when I got stuck on the end of the walkway, I finally just got unmindful so that I could turn and go and walk down to the other end. Not very unmindful, but I had to stop looking. I had to stop noting intention, or I would have been marooned at the end of the walkway. That doesn't have. You got to be pretty sharp to catch intention with any kind of regularity. And like, it's not thinking. It's just it's an impulse, sort of. Would you say, Bhante?
Well, I forgot now.
Well, I mean, you don't think,
No.
now I'm going to turn around. You
Right.
there's just an intention that is this kind of nebulous impulse, sort of.
Yeah. A
But
mind moment.
Yeah, but it precedes everything.
Well, whose show was that? Mind moment? Was that yours?
Patricia.
Who coined the term mind moment?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
that's what it is. It's a mind moment.
My YouTube channel is Mind Moment, and the website is mindmoment.net.
Yeah.
So Patricia secretly, without my knowledge, had this made.
Yeah.
And then she sent it to me. So I thought, I have a pile of t-shirts, and I just, whatever one is on top, I put it on,
Yeah.
And today I came to Mind Moment t-shirt.
Now, an example of seeing a kind of a gross example of seeing this mind moment of this intention would be if you're walking to your door, you have a plan, you're going to go to the market. You're walking towards the door, you're reaching for the door handle, and then you remembered, or like a thought arose, I don't have my keys, or where's my keys? Or I need to do this, I need to turn off the light. So you freeze in that moment, you stop. Now you don't continue to like open up the door. You stop what you're doing, you stop in your tracks. That's a gross, not subtle, it's a thing that everybody can experience. That moment where it's sort of like a big thought, or a thought arises, you stop what you're doing. Oh, I need to check on that before I go. It's an interruption in probably just being in a sea of thoughts. One thought going into another and another. We don't know what we're doing. We're just kind of walking out the door. We push the key, to unlock the door. We get in, and we don't know what we're doing. We're thinking of something else. We're thinking about what we're going to be doing in 30 minutes. When we're driving, we're like half dazed, half asleep. And so this whole mindfulness is to really pinpoint, get back down into the present moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. And it's whatever the largest object is that arises in each moment, that's what we note.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, then we go back to the breath, rising, falling, in and out, left, right, left, right. We feel the contact of the body on the chair. You can be sitting at the table, you have your elbow on the table. You can just sit there for 20 minutes and note the contact of your elbow on the table. Just touching, touching, touching. And after 10 minutes, it's going to be burning, 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 fire, fire, aching. And then probably after 5 minutes after that, it's going to be, sort of a happiness, bubbly, like you're floating, some kind of rapture arises because you've calmed the mind and you calm the body down, and then rapture can arise naturally. And then happy, rapture. Oh, this is really great. And then it's like, okay, thinking. And you just keep, you have to be creative. And that's what these teachers are for, is to help you to, look at this, look at that, give you something to look for when you're walking or sitting or eating or brushing your teeth. And it's just all these activities from the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep. And that was one thing that Joseph Goldstein said. It was like, you should note from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. You should try to note your first in-breath or out-breath when you wake up. Did you wake up on your in-breath? Did you wake up on your out-breath? And so when I hear those kinds of instructions, it's like, in, out, and you could be like asleep, but if you're doing that, you can be completely alert within just a few seconds, just a couple of breaths. You're completely conscious, awake, and with kind of a powerful mindfulness from the moment that you wake up. And you just continue that. And it can be very effortless when you're.
Do you think it's possible for someone, household life, job, you think it's possible for them to be mindful all day?
Well, this is for the retreats.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He was giving instructions during a 10-day retreat.
Yeah.
And all your food is provided, and so that's what that's for.
Yeah.
For lay people, probably just pick, try to see if you can note if you woke up on your in-breath or out-breath. Maybe focus on your meals. Again, don't eat standing up and watching your phone or your TV. Don't do two things at once. Train the mind to just do one thing at a time. So just like, don't drink and drive. The police tell you that. It's like, don't do two things at once, just drive. A lot of sports cars don't have drink cups, or, there's no place for a beverage in a sports car, because you're supposed to be driving that thing, the stick shift and everything. This isn't a luxury liner Winnebago. So, just try to train the mind in your day-to-day life, just to do one thing at a time. Simplify your mind, simplify your life.
It's possible to do that a lot of times during the day. I mean, when you walk, from the shed down to the garage, I mean, what are you going to do? You can be mindful that you're walking down to the garage, or when you pick up the can of paint or something like that, reaching, you can feel the weight of the paint on you, the handle on your hand. I mean, what else? Or if you're washing dishes, feel wet hands or hot water or scrubbing or something. I mean, what else are you going to do? There's a lot of things that you do. Some things it's very difficult. If you're having a business conference and you're discussing new designs or something like that, you can be aware that you're having a meeting or something, but as far as being momentarily mindful, that's pretty challenging. But when you're walking from your office to your car, or when you're driving home, or when you're going to the fridge to get a cold bottle of water or something, you don't have to do anything else a lot of times. Like Bhante said, when you're brushing your teeth, or in the shower or eating or standing at the sink, washing. Those are all great opportunities to be mindful.